Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a background on our debt and how we got into 6 figures worth of debt in the last few years. And so first to start, I wanted to just give a very brief story about my background with debt. So I graduated high school in 2010, and that's the year that I started college. And that's also the year that I opened my first credit card. So for the first couple years of college, I had this credit card. I would utilize it for everyday expenses, shopping, all those kind of things. And for the most part, I would pay it off. So I definitely started on a more responsible note with debt. And then in 2012, which was my sophomore year of college, 2 really big things happened that impacted my debt a lot. So the first was that I studied abroad, and that was for about a month and a half. And I also bought a car, a brand new car, which now I look back and laugh at my barely 20-year-old self buying a brand new car, but that is what I did. So I studied abroad my sophomore year of college in the summertime for about a semester. It ended up being about a month and a half, almost 2 months that I was gone. And then when I got back in November, I bought my car. So up until this point, I was still utilizing those credit cards that I got in 2010. I was for the most part paying them off, but this is kind of where it started to snowball into a bigger problem in this 2012 year. So obviously I opened my student loans in 2010. My parents did not assist any of my siblings and I with our college tuition. Not that I expected them to at all, but just to give the background that I did have to open student loans to start college. So I opened my student loans in 2010, and then I took out more to study abroad. And so then I had credit cards, student loans, and then a car payment in 2012. So 2013 was pretty quiet, similar. I was paying my car off. I didn't miss payments on my car or anything. I still had those credit cards. They were starting to carry a balance more frequently in 2013, and then 2014, which is kind of where my story gets a little crazy. So 2014, I got pregnant with my son, and that was my senior year of college. So I was really determined to finish my senior year. I did not want to stop going to college. And so that was a huge impact on my debt story. So at the time, I was working full-time my entire college career. So because I didn't have any help from family or anything, I did have to support myself while I was going to school. So I did work full-time starting in 2010. Actually, before that, I worked almost full-time in high school as well. And then, so I was working full-time in 2014. I got pregnant. I was going to school full-time. I was very stressed out because I did not know what I was gonna do. My job was not the greatest. I did not make a ton of money. I was definitely very scared and worried about what was gonna happen. I did not have any paid maternity leave when I had my son. I had 1 week of paid vacation, and that was all I got for the year. So I took that, and the rest of my time was unpaid. So that was definitely a very stressful time. I still had my car payment. I still had my student loans that were just rolling and rolling and rolling into each other. I still had my credit cards, and this is to the point where my credit cards started to get almost maxed out, which was very scary. So anyways, I had my son, then the medical bills started rolling in, so then it's just adding debt on debt on debt on debt. And then in 2015 was pretty similar. My son was growing up. I was working full time. In 2014, I did end up graduating in December, which was very exciting. I graduated with my undergrad degree in business. I did start my first career job, I guess you could say, in 2014. I actually started it in November, so before I graduated, and I worked almost full-time. I worked 3 days a week, 10 hours, and then 2 days a week I was going to school. So I had to go back to school when my son was about 3 weeks old. to finish my senior year, because it was my last semester, and so I had some classes that I had to be in person for. So I did go back to school really early in this time, which was very difficult, and I also had to go back to work. So my son was born the end of August. I was back in school in September, and I was back working full-time in November. Then in December, I graduated. 2015, I just kind of was raising my son, working full-time at that same job. 2016 is when I started grad school. And you're probably wondering, why did you do that? And sometimes I ask myself the same thing, but I think it was more so a pride thing for me. Back when I was in my undergrad, getting my undergrad degree, I was very set on going to law school. That was a dream that I had for many, many years, and I was very excited about that. I wanted to be an employment lawyer, and then I got pregnant, and my plans had to change because it was just not going to happen. I had to be working full-time to be able to support myself and my son, and it just wasn't going to work out. So then in 2016, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to go to law school, but I still want to further my education. I was actually a first-generation college graduate with my undergrad, and I wanted to be more educated. I wanted to get a grad degree. I wanted to show my son that you can do anything, and I wanted to prove people wrong that said that I was going to drop out of college and that I was going to fail and I was never going to be anything. And I know a lot of people have those stories, especially teen moms or parents that had kids at a young age, and I did not want to be a statistic, and I wanted to show my son that I could do it. So in 2016, I started grad school, and this is also the year that I really got a handle on my consumer debt. So I took out a personal loan and paid off all my credit cards. So then 2016, 2017, I was really taking charge of my personal debt, but I was still in grad school, so I was still accumulating some student debt. So I wasn't perfect, but I did try to get that kind of under control just so that I wasn't in a lot of debt. So my debt has been up, down, up, down, up, down for basically the last 10 years. I've been in and out. I obviously had medical debt then as well that I had to pay off. So that brings me to 2018. We bought our house. And I remember, this is kind of like my being sick and tired moment in 2018, because I had, for the most part, paid off all of my debt, and the only debt that I had was my student loans at this point. But it was a whopping $130,000, which is insane and makes me sick to think about. And I was terrified because my husband doesn't have any debt. He didn't have any debt when we got married. He didn't take out any student loans or anything. So I felt really guilty because I was bringing in so much debt from my own schooling and everything. And then when we went to buy our house, I was extremely, extremely nervous that I would not qualify to buy our house because of all my debt. So this was a huge, monumental year for me. Debt-wise, I was determined to face my debt and no longer just kind of pay the minimum and ignore it. I mean, honestly, before we bought our house, I didn't even have a clue of how much student debt I had. I was completely ignoring it. I did not want to admit that I had a problem on my hands. I was just paying the minimums, and that was that. So then in 2018, that's when I really started to look at my debt. What do I need to do? Started to pay more. And that's kind of bringing us to my exact debt. So I want to use this debt tracker today to kind of show you where my debt is at right now and where it started at for my student loans. So December 2020, I'm actually going to go down here first, and I'm going to talk about my total starting debt. So this is just for my student loans. So like I said, there was points in time where I had more debt than this. There was points in time where I had less debt than this. I have had consumer debt, I've had credit cards, personal loans, car payments, all of that. So this is just kind of my student loans and what I consider my starting. So that was based in two parts. So I had a private and I have some federal. I had to get a private loan because when I first started college, I filled out the FAFSA and my dad actually made too much money to qualify me for all the loans that I needed to be able to go to school. And so I had to take out this private loan for a few years to supplement that loan to get me through my first 2 years of school. So that private starting was $35,676.77. Holy cow. And my federal, oh my gosh, this makes me so sick. $96,727.78 for that grand total of $132,404.55. So my current debt, we have managed to pay off. So this was starting in 2018, I would say early 2018. My husband and I were engaged, and that was kind of when I was like, okay, we're engaged, we're gonna get married, we're gonna buy a house. Like, I want to have my finances figured out. So I would say my debt repayment for this really started in 2018. So it's been a little over 2 years on this journey, and my current debt is $67,900, which means that to date I have paid $64,055, and that is 48% paid off. So this debt paid to date, that is just principal. So I have definitely paid more than $64,000, which again makes me very sick to think about the fact that I've paid that much in debt repayment and interest, but that is what it is. So I'm just gonna go up here and I'm gonna break down what I currently owe, and then we can kind of talk about my plan going forward. So I do have a bunch of different debts that I have just based on like the way that my school had broken them out. So unfortunately, I don't have all of the starting balances. My loans are through Great Lakes, and their statements are not great because a lot of my loans have a similar interest rate, and so they kind of just lump them together. So I can't really say the starting balance exactly, but I'm just gonna go based on the current balance, and I'm gonna go from smallest to largest, even though that's not actually how I'm paying them off right now. So I will explain that in a second. Let me just get through these. So a lot of these smaller ones are like semesters or additions. So it was kind of strange with like me studying abroad. I ended up taking out some extra federal and then some extra private as well. So they all kind of I have just a ton of like little loans, and I know that a lot of people enjoyed doing the debt snowball. And I actually started doing that in 2018, just doing the debt snowball. So I've actually chopped off like probably 5 loans by doing the debt snowball. But I kind of paused that this year and started when the federal loans started not being in repayment and not accruing interest. I decided to take a break from the debt snowball and turn to the debt avalanche because we weren't accruing interest, and I thought it would be a good idea to chop off some of my really high interest rates. Because some of my interest rates are from grad school, those do tend to have a little bit higher interest rate. So I did start that way, and I'll kind of explain what I've paid off out of these. So these last two are my big grad school loans, and these do have a higher interest rate. So this one's 5.59. They're all around 3 to 5. I do have one that's over 6, which is crazy to me. So I am not 100% sure if I'm going to stick with the avalanche long term or if I will switch back to the debt snowball. I'm kind of just letting myself do what I feel like is motivating in the moment for me. So I actually haven't even really been sticking to the avalanche. I've kind of just been paying based on what I feel like is right at the moment. So I've kind of switched back and forth this year. I actually did have one more. I had a $10,000 loan in here that was from grad school. That was around this 6.5, I think, interest rate. I paid that one off this year. I might just knock out a couple of these really small ones, even though they're low interest, just to kind of cut down on the amount that I have. But I haven't quite decided if that's what I'm going to do yet. So right now I'm actually focusing on these three because this is actually not a grad school loan. This is a loan that I had at some point in my college career that had a way higher interest rate. I'm not exactly sure why or what that's from. I would have to look at the year from that. But so these two are my grad, and then this one I'm also trying to pay off just because it has such a higher interest rate. These I'm not as worried about with the 3 and the 4%. Obviously I'd like to pay those off, but they're not quite on my radar right now. And my minimum payment right now, I don't have one because we're in the COVID relief and there is no minimum payment. But my minimum payment before was $870. So that was actually the start of this year. Was my payment was $870. That was when my debt was a lot higher, but I do plan to continue to pay more than that based on my snowball and just having extra money. But that is my minimum payment that I had. And so then I wanted to also talk about my debt-free plan. So I'm going to do this for 2021 because I do have a goal set for 2021 that I would like to pay. So for my 1-year goal for 2021, I would like to be under 40,000, which I feel like is a pretty realistic goal just based on how much we've paid. So I'm currently at 67,900. I do anticipate making 2 more payments in December. I pay weekly. You can visit my Instagram. I do a thing called Debt Free Friday, where I make a payment every single week, no matter if it's like $5, $10, or $1,500. I just try to do something every week so that I can stay motivated in that way. So I think that this is a realistic goal. I actually think I might be able to get even farther than this, but I don't want to overcommit myself because I'm not sure what's going to be happening with COVID and what's going to be happening with school and my kids and all of that. So I don't want to overcommit myself. So my 6-month goal then would be to pay off 14,000 by 6 months. So by June, I should have about 14,000 paid off. And then my 3-month goal, so around March, I should have at least 7,000 to meet this under 40,000 goal. So yeah, I hope that gave you guys a little bit of insight on my debt, and please feel free to leave any questions or comments below and let me know what your current debt is and how much you guys have paid off this year down below. Thank you so much. Have a great day.